welcome back to SoulBack. This is the R&B podcast. Got Tom and Ed with me. What is going on?
What's up, players? It's been a minute. Glad to have the whole crew back at full strength.
Glad that Ed made it home from WrestleMania in one piece.
Yes, and speaking of WrestleMania, the last podcast we did sounded like WrestleMania with Jay Holiday throwing steel chairs at everybody.
But hey, this week we have another very exciting guest for you guys. We have Jermaine Dupri. Tom, can you give me your best? Y'all know what this is?
No, I can't actually. I'm going to leave that for him when he comes on.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But before we get started here, I want to, because it's been a minute, can I do the SoulBack track of the day really quickly to make up for the last 2 weeks? Because Jermaine has done so many classics. I think we need to highlight one of them right now. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
So this song came out, actually it's been out for a decade now, produced by Jermaine Dupri. I would call it a modern day classic. Great singing on it, great lyrical content. We're going to go with the record Good Good by Ashanti.
I knew it.
Oh my god. As much as I want to strangle you through this microphone, I actually love that song, so I can't even hate that much.
It actually is a good song.
Good. I'm glad we're all on the same
Good Ashanti
page,
songs are hard to find.
I was about to whip out the Ashanti resume that has Foolish, Happy, Always on Time, the better version of Into You with Fabulous. I'm going to say it right now.
Oh my
the better
God.
version. But because we're all on the same page with this Good record, I'll leave you guys alone.
Well, you better leave me alone, because how dare you defile the name of Tamia, the better version. Oh my. Hold me back, Tom, because the hand's about to fly.
I'm not touching that one.
All right. Let's calm down here. I want to quickly go into our fan love section really quickly. You know, we haven't done one in a minute, but this one comes from Ed. I think this is your friend, right? Nicolette?
Yes, shout out.
She wanted to give us her R&B album story, and this one was the Tamia record, Between Friends, which she's actually been asking us to talk about for like 40 episodes now. But she wanted to let us know that the album came out right around the time I started listening to R&B. It was banned when I was little. That album is vocal goals to me. Last First Kiss to this day will still sound new to me.
Shout out to my girl, a true fan of R&B and somebody who's always been supportive of both soul and stereo, and I got soul for years and years and years. And she's a pretty talented writer and photographer in her own right. So shout out my dog.
Hey Tom, how come it seems like all these R&B fans were once upon a time banned from listening to the genre?
I don't even know what that means. I mean, banned?
Ed?
I mean, maybe there was a point where let's keep it real. R&B is pretty grown and sexy, and if you're freaking 8 years old, your mama might not want you to listen to Secret Garden or whatever is going on. So there was really no musical bands in my house, but I can understand it.
I guess that's how I was banned from playing Mortal Kombat when I was a kid.
Yeah, just like that.
When you guys eventually have kids, will they be allowed to listen to the 12 Play album?
Oh my god. Once they get of age, I'm not putting that urine-soaked album in their hands beforehand.
Damn. Alright. Alright, let's calm down here. JD's going to be coming in a bit, and we want to keep it politically correct for the most part, and we got to start practicing that now. But let's get started with the new music. En Vogue's new album. I think this one was a little bit of a surprise to us. I mean, En Vogue, I would say, had a decent comeback. That's actually one of my favorites of the year so far. But Ed, what did you think of the album itself?
I think I mentioned on the podcast, I saw En Vogue on tour with my man Keith Sweat last October, and I liked the new lineup, The Latest Can Sing, and I wanted to I'm a fan of En Vogue, and I wanted this album to be a little bit more than it was. It's well sung, well produced. I really liked their single I'm Good. I thought it sounded even better on the album than it had in earlier incarnations. But overall, it was okay, but it really lacked a standout. There was nothing that made me want to come back and give it another listen and another listen and another listen. So while it's a decent comeback, getting them back into the groove and reintroducing them to the audience, it's not a lot there for you to hang your hat on, unfortunately. But if you're a big En Vogue fan, probably find a couple things to like on it.
Yeah, it's interesting that some aren't even supporting the comeback because Dawn's not involved. They're saying it's not the real En Vogue, which is interesting, but, you know, you're always going to get those.
Don't get me started on that. I mean, Dawn has been in and out of that group since 1998 or something, so this is not new. The fake outrage kills me.
Can I ask you guys a question? Because I've seen it at like a Boyz II Men concert. Do you think at this point it's acceptable for someone to go into an En Vogue concert and be like, where's Dawn? Because she's been gone for so long. Like, why would you be expecting her at this point?
Oh, that's ridiculous at this point. Because if you consider yourself a fan, you would know that Dawn has moved. I mean, this is well documented. She went to Lucid Pearl, to Aftermath with Dr. Dre. If you watch R&B Divas, which is 5 or 6 years old, all of this is documented. It'd be like turning on a Puffy record and being like, well, where's Mace? Like, come on, what is this? You know what, if you're a fan, you know what the deal is. That's why I don't buy this, well, I'm not supporting them because Dawn isn't there. Did you just wake up in 1997? Stop.
I wonder if anyone's tried requesting a refund at one of the shows.
No,
please.
I was at a Boyz II Men concert probably about 2 years ago, and everyone was like, where's the fourth member? Where's Mike? And I'm like, he's been gone for like a decade, but...
Yes. But even Boyz II Men, I'll give a little bit of a... I'll give you the benefit of the doubt a little bit, because at least they've been a little bit under the radar as opposed to En Vogue. En Vogue's breakups and roster changes are well documented for like 20 years. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's like that Jagged Edge concert I was at a couple years ago, and someone said, where's the fourth member? Oh, low blow.
Don't answer that question.
Or
I hope nobody watched Cold.
Even better, that Jagged Edge concert that Kyle went to in Canada and said, where's the other 3 members?
Yep. Shout out to Wingo. He was the only one that showed up.
Kyle, your name is Kyle. You should have stepped in.
Yeah. Another record that came out, or an EP, Chante Moore, and we had mentioned her single came out, and that was actually pretty solid. And Ed, I know you liked the rest of it.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I mean, and no, that's no shot at Chante, because we love Chante. She's a great veteran artist who has contributed a lot to the genre. But most of you know my stance on EPs. It's kind of hard to rate them because they just feel so short, and usually they feel really unfinished because they're so short. But I really like this one. It's called One of Four, so I assume we'll get 3 more before the end of the year. But it was a great start. It's maybe just 5 tracks or so, but I think it was the first and final tracks on that thing that I really, really liked. So really looking forward to those other 3 releases. Shantae's still doing her thing.
And Tom, it seems like every time I look at a post about Chante Moore, especially from Ed's So in Stereo Cypher page, everyone keeps asking about this fraud situation, and I don't think we have much more clarity on that thing that happened. I think it was late last year.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot about that.
It's still confusing to me.
But I don't even know what happened. That was such a weird thing.
Yeah. Hey, R&B times are tough right now. We're going to have to ask Jermaine Dupri later what's going on in the genre, because that is probably the most bizarre thing I've ever read.
You think that was a publicity stunt?
I don't know.
No. You never put it past anyone these days. But
no, you don't.
I still don't understand how you I mean, for those of you who don't know, it was something like she was like using money to like buy her own albums from iTunes. I mean, y'all know I don't like getting into the... Because if you go to Soul and Stereo, and you know I got Soul, this is the one site you can go to and not have to worry about headlines. It's like, find out why The Weeknd is crying on stage, and wonder what Nicki Minaj is talking about. Yeah, listen, you know how this is the part of the podcast where I say if you got beef, go to E.T. Bowser. This is Soul and Stereo talking, not you. You know I got Soul, so leave them out of it. Yeah, I'm throwing shots. My point is, we like to keep it about the music, not the drama. So I don't know what's going on with Chante. I don't really care. I just want to know if the album's good.
Yep. Another album that came out was Tinashe's Joyride. How long have we been waiting for this album, guys?
Oh my, poor Tinashe. Poor Tinashe. We've been waiting forever. I haven't heard the album, but I know you did, Kyle.
I did, and let me just say, it was not worth the 2-year wait. Now, I know she did put out Night Ride. Was it last? I think it was last year. She put out Night Ride, and I actually liked that album. But this album right here, it sounded a lot like half of it was stuff that she wanted to put out, and the other half was stuff that you could tell was forced on her by the label. And that stuff especially, it was more so like the singles that she's already put out with Ed's favorite artist, French Montana, Ty Dolla $ign. No. Who else was there? Future. I think those are like the three holy trinity artists that every R&B artist has to collaborate with these days.
Holy trinity, wow.
Yep. I think we have to put Jeremiah up there too, right?
Yeah, they got it going in. Holy Trinity, more like Blade Trinity, the worst of the bunch. But Playa, she is so talented, but just so directionless, and it kind of hurts me because she had so much potential, and so many of us were very, very excited for her when she first came on the scene. And I keep giving her the benefit of the doubt, saying, "Oh, there's still time, and there's always time." But man, I don't know if the window was closing.
Yeah, you know what? I'd love to say there's time left, but if there's going to be any time, if there's any bit of crack in that window, it'll probably be on another label. I don't think RCA will be keeping her because her album, guys, only sold 5,000 copies.
Well, you could almost tell that they put this album out at this point just to fulfill an obligation because it didn't seem like there was any dedicated rollout. So that's the way I look at it. But Tinashe is like, it reminds me of this interview I did with Jazzy Jeff where he said he got sick and tired of labels because it's like labels would sign an artist and say, "We love you, we love everything about you. Now we want to change everything about you." So, and that to me is Tinashe. It's like the sound she had originally, which we all enjoyed, is completely gone, and the label has forced her in every which direction. It's just frustrating as a music fan.
Very much so. I think the label looked at her and was like, "Well, this is our Rihanna. Let's recreate Rihanna," but she's not Rihanna, so let her be her.
Do you guys remember the song "Flame"? That single that came out last year was like a poppier single.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Tinashe did an interview recently with I think Rolling Out or one of those outlets, and she said that the label forced her to put that single out, and she cried for 2 days after that. That's hard times.
That's awful. That's terrible.
Yeah, but I will say, you know what you're signing up for when you sign with a label. So, I mean, does she really have a right to be upset?
But does she know what she's signing up for? I think that we know. I think that all of us are informed enough that we know. But I think that when your dream is that close in front of you, you're like, okay, this might not happen, but this is my one and only shot. I'm going to get in the door. I'm going to change their minds. I'm going to do this. And when they get in, they just bend to the wheel. So I can understand them thinking that, like, forget what they say. I'm going to be me. I'm going to do the music I want to do. But it's a lot easier said than done.
Fair enough.
Yep. Now, speaking of terrible, can we talk about Chrisette Michele's new album? I'm sorry, I had to do it.
At E.T. Bowser. I haven't even heard the album yet, so. Jeez.
I know, Ed, you have.
All right, players.
Can you do your, this is where you send all your hate? Do the whole thing.
Yes, I'm doing the whole spiel. Players, if you are listening to this message, Chrisette, all your fans, if you're listening to this message, please send your drama, your hate, and your spears to @ET_Bowser on Twitter, because this is the opinion of me and not You Know I Got Soul. Deep breath. All right, players. Tom knows this. I know you remember this, Kyle. One of the first reviews that I did for You Know I Got Soul was Chrisette Michele's Better album. I gave that album 4.5 stars. It was that close to being a 5-star album. It was phenomenal. I am a Chrisette Michele fan. And coming off of her very tumultuous couple of years, as we all know, she had really been getting beat up on social media about her stance regarding her commitment to the black community when she decided to perform at the Trump inauguration and all that drama that followed. And then her response, and there was a lot of confusion. Music at its best tells a story. And I thought that this album would be her opportunity to tell that story. When I looked at the track list and I see the album's called Out of Control, and I see track lists is talking about strong black women and Black Lives Matter and blah, 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 I thought that this was her opportunity to tell her side of the story. That ain't what we got. We got a whole bunch of generic, rah-rah, black power songs that sounded really rushed, really poorly put together. Production is very generic, and her vocals are not good. Probably the worst I've heard them ever from an artist who has a very distinctive voice that is people can love or hate. I always love, but the vocals sound really weak and tired and even screechy on a lot of songs. It is not a good project at all. And a lot of people ask me when I do reviews, they're like, oh man, you always give albums the same reviews. Why is it always like around the same reviews? Because when I review albums, y'all don't pay me enough. So I review albums from artists that we like. So it's very rare, even if there's an artist who puts out an album that, let's say they decide to go trap or they try to deviate from their sound. And sometimes it don't quite work. But they're still talented. So even when it's not great, it's still solid because they're a good artist. This album, if I reviewed it, this score would be much lower than any score I've done in a long, long time. And that's no reflection on her talent, but it's a reflection of the direction of the album. It was not good. It was rushed. We know it's rushed because as Tom and I were talking about before the podcast, most people didn't even know this thing was even out because it hit. There was not much promotion to it. It's a very rushed project that really breaks my heart. It's not good, and I expect so much more from a Grammy-nominated artist.
I'm a little upset. My most thing that I'm upset about is how it came out, and this is one of our most highly respected artists. How was it allowed to just come out of nowhere? I heard about it the day before it came out. Why would you release an album like that? I'm just upset about that, of all things.
And if you listen to it, Playa, it sounds like it was rushed and came out of nowhere. It is not at all the polished album that we respected. I wish she could have taken the words of her best album and did better, because she can do much better than this.
But dude, I sent you guys the album cover like 3 days before it came out, and I laughed about it. I'm like, what kind of album cover is this? So maybe there's some correlation there between how much effort they put into the album cover and the actual album.
Man, it looked like a Windows 95 screensaver with the thing zooming in and out like the Twilight Zone. Like, the whole thing is just off target, dog. Come on, player. We need to do better.
So do you have a
We
rating
need to
for
be
this
like
album?
the better album. What's that count?
Do you have a rating on this album? A number? 1 to 5?
I'm not going to
0?
rate it because the way I rate albums... No, I wouldn't give it a 0. It's not that bad. But I can't fairly rate it because... And I have a process when I rate albums, and I feel like just to throw out a number would betray that process. But player, it would be much lower than 3 stars. I'll give it that.
Okay, well, I'm gonna list some albums, and you tell me if it's better than these albums.
Okay, that's fair.
Usher's Hard to Love.
No.
Oh, that's bad. That's bad. Yeah, I'm not gonna make fun of anyone else, but let's move on from that. And get into
I know. Well, my DMs will be on fire, and like I have said a million times, I'm a huge Chrisette fan, so this ain't throwing shade at Chrisette. This is one of the artists who we love to be better. What we got was not to her level of work.
Damn. Now, can I get into the Playa Please award? Actually, we might have 2 today. One which we'll probably talk about more than the other. But the first Playa Please is Sabrina Claudio, who made Twitter mad with her comments. Ed?
Poor Sabrina. Now, for those who didn't know, Sabrina, unfortunately, it was determined that she, on social media, was making very negative comments toward people of darker skin complexions. And apparently she had this reputation of doing this. I can't remember the whole story. But she has this reputation of doing this over the years. And it came out a couple days ago. And just so for people who say, oh, it's fake news or rumor, she came out and admitted that she did it in the past and asked for forgiveness. The reason why this is terrible is because Sabrina is just starting to make waves. Now, we've known about her for a while, but she's just starting to break through to the mainstream and getting some ears. You cannot break through the mainstream in this climate and have some race stuff anchored to you already. Playa, you shot out of the gate. Like, it's going to be very hard for her to overcome this out of the gate because she's already going to be labeled as that girl who hates dark-skinned people. And if this is the beginning of your career, oh, you shot. Y'all know I work with a lot of youth in Birmingham. And one of the things I always tell them is to keep their social media presence clean, because even if you have grown as a person, if somebody find you wilding out from a few years ago, your career is shot. I wish Sabrina was in my class.
Tom, should we fire Sabrina, Claudio's manager, for not telling her to delete her social media pages before she blew up?
Oh, why do you have to ask me that question? You know how I feel about artist managers. Isn't it usually someone they grew up with who has no experience in anything involving artist management?
Yeah.
So how are they supposed to know about that?
Yep. That's why I'm saying, guys, lock your Twitters, protect your Instagrams. The only thing, and keep your LinkedIn page clean as well. Let's do that. LinkedIn is very important.
LinkedIn.
Let me find out who is wilding out on that LinkedIn page. Like, if that's the epitome of stupidity. If you got, like, if you've got topless pics on your LinkedIn, like, there's no hope for you in life.
Man, sometimes you just want to throw shots at your manager, man.
On LinkedIn? Oh, my God.
All right, calm down. The second Playa Please award, Taylor Swift.
Oh, God.
Ed, I don't understand. Wait, why is this on the Playa Please award? She did a great cover of the Earth, Wind and Fire song.
Playa, what?
No?
Listen, look, you already strike one with Ashanti. Don't make it strike 18 with this one. Now, look, players, I don't know if you've heard this, but Taylor Swift decided to cover, of all songs, one of the greatest fuck songs in history. She covered September from Earth, Wind and Fire and turned it into the saddest, countryest, driest, unseasoned, unwanted song I have ever heard in my life. There are some things, I'm all for covers. I have no beef with covers. Of course, this spurred a conversation on Twitter that no one should ever cover anything, which is ridiculous, because y'all don't even realize that half the songs y'all love are covers of something else. You can do a good cover. Lauryn Hill did a great cover. Avant and Kiki Wyatt did a great cover. Those covers arguably are better than the originals. But this Playa, stop. Escape, who we're about to talk to, the great Jermaine Dupri, did great covers in their careers. Playa, what? Whose man greenlighted Taylor Swift covering Earth, Wind, and Fire? My soul has turned to dust listening to this thing.
Wow. Tom, is this more random than when Omarion covered the Earth, Wind, and Fire song Reasons last year?
First off, I heard Ed say dry and unseasoned. Man, are we talking about chicken? I'm hungry.
Oh my gosh, here we go.
Second of all, that Omarion song wasn't that bad.
It wasn't bad, it was random.
Well, Playa, compared to this, that thing is off the wall era Michael Jackson. Good Lord.
Man, shoutouts to Omarion. Well, guys, let's get on our best behavior because Jermaine Dupri is about to join us on the podcast every week. Every episode, we're going to bring in someone special, someone that's brought SoulBack, one of the biggest producers in the game. He's brought SoulBack on so many levels. Tom, who's our special guest today?
Yeah, we're really proud to have this special guest with us. One of our favorite producers, someone we've been so happy to support through all these years. He's done so much for R&B and hip-hop. He's brought so many hits and just keeps it going. And, we're proud to have Jermaine Dupri with us. What's up, Jermaine?
What's happening? What's going on?
Man, we're just, like we said, we've just been, supporting you all these years and just glad to see you keep it going. And thanks again for joining us.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
So we're going to hit you right off the top. We like to call this the icebreaker. We just kind of throw something off the wall, and it's probably going to sound a little weird, but this is an ongoing debate for the past, I guess, 20 years now. Which is the better song, You Got It Bad or Burn?
This is really a debate?
Yeah, it's a debate.
I never noticed it to be a debate. I think I think You Got It Bad probably is the better song because it was the creation of Burn. When I did Burn, I just tried to duplicate what I did in You Got It Bad. So that's basically what that's basically what I was trying to do. I was not trying to totally duplicate it, but just take what I had done in You Got It Bad to the next level. Because one of the things that we always talk about, me and Usher and B. Cox, is that when we make these songs, every time we make an album, we've never duplicated the song. We never duplicated a song that we thought was going to be a hit. So, like, when we made You Got It Bad, we just made that one song and made nothing else like that the whole time we was making the album. Like, we didn't try to recreate. We didn't try a bunch of You Got It Bads and came up with that one song. We just made that one song, and then we moved on to other styles. So when we came back with the Confessions album, I was just like, man, You Got It Bad is so big for you. It's a crazy song. People sing it every word. We got to make something that has that same feeling and that same mindset and that same vibe to it for this album. So that's why these two songs actually sound similar but not the same. So I would say, for me, You Got It Bad is the song.
Nice.
That's the line I live on. I mean, I feel like that song has always been the evolution of that original sound, and that's why it sounds similar, not necessarily duplicated, but it's like the next progression of that sound. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Hey, JD, before you got on the podcast, we were just talking about, the remixes that you've done throughout the years, and it's amazing what you've been able to do with those, because those are songs that you've produced, and then you remix them and turn them into a whole different song. And, I would love for you to talk on it, but before you get into it, Ed, what's your favorite Jermaine Dupri remix?
Oh, man, you put a brother on the spot. I think it might be, first one that pops in my head is the My All remix with Peter Guns, and because that era, they had just dropped the Deja Vu joint, and then they came back with that one, and that's that whole different sound from My All, because original My All sounded absolutely nothing like that. Here JD comes out of left field with his very hard-hitting hip-hop joint back in 98, so, I love that song. So that's probably my favorite remix. Either that or, and I'm going to give you this one, y'all probably forgot about this, the remix to That's What I'm Looking For off of Big Mama's House. I love that song too, but those are my two favorites.
JD, what was the concept for you, doing these remixes? What's the idea behind them?
Well, I mean, a remix is supposed to change the direction of a record. You know what I mean? A remix, people would reach out to me to get remixes to change the height level of a song, to make a song go further than what it already was, to increase more visibility by people that weren't probably paying attention to the song. A bunch of different things that is what a remix actually is supposed to do. A remix is not supposed to make your song stay in the same spot. A remix is supposed to drive that one particular song to higher levels than what it already had. So once I started doing remixes and my remixes started being like remixes that I thought could change people's direction. Like, say, for instance, like Sleeping in My Bed remix, right? The Sleeping in My Bed remix, the record Sleeping in My Bed was already number one. before I even did the remix. It was a #1 R&B record. So for me, it was like, what can I do to this? That's it's already #1. What am I gonna do that's gonna make people like this song even more? So I would go into that's my mindset in making remixes. Like, what can I do that's gonna make people like the existing song even more than they already like the song as it is? So with My All, it was the same thing. You just said it. My All sounded completely different. It was like a Latin, which is one of my favorite Mariah Carey records, by the way, but it was more like a Latin sounding record that really was like more for like quiet storm radio and slow groove radio and shit like that. It was like no more like it was mostly like that. It was like, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, how can we get Mariah's My All on Hot 97? How can I get Funkmaster Flex to want to play this? How can I get this person to talk about? Because once that happens, you know, this is before streaming and this, that, and third. So it's like as many places, and it's kind of like the theory of streaming now. What my goal was to try to have records play in more arenas than they could actually get in when they were just the regular song. So the regular version of My All was probably only getting played on 2 or 3 stations. My remix came and then it started getting played on, I don't want to say 2 or 3 stations, 2 or 3 formats. Then my remix comes and it starts getting played on, you know, 3 and 4 different formats, that one song. So you look at that one song, you're like, oh, they made this one ballad get played on, you know, up-tempo radio, slow-tempo radio, whatever. It was just like it became a situation where my remix provided the artist an outlet to touch everybody with a song that they loved more than they would possibly happen if the record company was just like, we're just going to go with this record. You know what I mean? So that's what the remix is about.
I think a perfect example of what you're talking about is what you did with Let's Get Married remix for Jagged Edge. I mean, that the remix was such a huge thing, but like such a separate thing from the original. And you have like, now not only do you have an original and a remix, it's like 2 Super Smash records separately. I thought that was amazing too.
Thank you.
Cool. So, JD, we want to just highlight another skill that you've brought to the industry, which is your ability to work with younger artists and breaking these new artists, such as a Bow Wow, Dondria being another one. What's the key to that and having them sustain the longevity like we've seen with, you know, Usher, for example? You started with them really early on. How have you been able to guide them throughout their entire career?
I mean, well, all of my artists actually have been young. I mean, you know, that's the thing of So Def. So Def embodies. It was created with that mindset. You know what I mean? So I always felt like if you was a young artist, you should want to be with me because I'm going to look out for you more based on me understanding the ground that you walk more than, you know, just other people. Other people just trying to get you to do what they feel like, you know, somebody else is doing, as opposed to, you know, younger artists have the opportunity to do more because they're limited in other areas, but not in the talent area, not in the music making area, and in the creative area. So for me, it's always just been like, I mean, and you know, I started out when I was 12. So, you know, basically, me, I feel like I'm speaking to myself when I'm talking to a lot of these younger artists because I was in their space before and I know what I wanted and I know what I see that they want. Then I'm just like usually just talking to them as if I'm talking to myself and just letting them know how important it is for them to take advantage of their youth. You know, I did a panel the other day here in Atlanta, and while I was talking on the panel, I started talking about myself as what I did when I couldn't get into the clubs and what I did when I couldn't go out. And at 19, I made the Crisscross album, and all I did was stay in my house and make beats and nonstop make beats, make records, try to write records and this, that, and the third. And it almost made me wonder, you know, when you have less, do you do more? And that's the mentality of, you know, these younger artists because they don't have They have yet to crack, they don't have money like the majority of these artists. They don't have access to go to clubs and be out in the pub, be out all at night, every time. And they don't really have everything that they want or that they speak about. All they can do is work on their craft to get to that place. And then what you do is you start putting in way more hours than you would probably put in if you had, to go have a meeting and definitely, so I'm just looking at that and saying, man, when I was younger, I was doing so much more because I wasn't doing all of this other stuff that I have to do on top of what I'm doing. So yeah, what I do is I just talk to these young artists and tell them just that, like, yo, take advantage, you know what I mean? Take advantage of the time that you have, because you won't have this same time once you start getting into the 20s and late 30s and all of that. It's going to be completely different.
No, absolutely. Now, Ed, I mean, we talked about Jermaine and his work with a lot of the younger acts. Jermaine, you worked with a lot of the, more established R&B acts early on in their career. Ed, I know we were talking about the Tamia Imagination record earlier. What are some of your other favorites that Jermaine did early on?
Oh man, it's so many early on because I'm a fan from way back. I was around when So Def first hit, so I remember when Escape first hit on the scene and girls were dressing like Escape down south. I remember when Criss Cross came out and changed the way that had us in 7th grade wearing our clothes backwards and our parents yelling at us. So I remember the influence that a lot of those early records had on kind of the younger generation. And when you look at the younger generation now and how music is influencing them, it makes me wonder, JD, how do you think that today's music is influencing this generation, like Criss Cross and Escape and Brat influenced us way back in the 90s?
Well, it's hard for me to answer this question because I didn't know that my artist was actually influencing people like that. You know what I mean? I just thought that, Like it's strange. I know probably you hear that, but I never really got into the fact that we was influencing people. You know what I mean? I felt like we were trying to just break and get into a space where people would like us. But the fact of me hearing people say we was actually influencing them is like, I'm like, I can't really, it's hard for me to answer the question because I don't really know. I think that this generation has a long ways to go. I can say that though. They're not really that influenced by a lot of things. They are, they are, but they're not really taking it the way that past artists, when they say they was influenced by something, they really took it to a different space, and they dealt with the influence differently. Let me say that, not take it to a different space. They just took the influence in a lot different. I think like a lot of these young artists today, they're influenced by other genres. I see that now. I see a lot of these rappers definitely are influenced by like punk rock and rock and roll artists and different type of genres as opposed to being rap artists. You know what I'm saying? So I see that more or less than anything now. Not a lot of, I don't see a lot of artists today that, even female artists. I see no female artists. It's like almost damn near extent out here. Like it's no female group like TLC. It's no female group like Escape. It's none of that existing. So I don't really see, and it might be on the creators' part, but at the same time, artists as well. I don't see too many of them that's influenced by what came prior to them in this era.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it is. Now, JD, I got to ask you because I think last week Avant's Unsung episode was on, and I remember you produced a couple of records off his Director album, and it made me realize a lot of our favorite producers from that era, from the 90s and 2000s, how come you guys aren't on the major major releases for major record albums anymore? Like, because you were such a huge influence on the youth, you worked with a lot of the younger guys, but like the major albums now, we don't see you guys. Is that intentional on your part?
Well, me, I've never been the guy trying to get placements. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's interesting that you even say that because I mean, if you really go through my discography, all the placements and artists that you talk about are my own artists. You know what I'm saying? I created my own lane. I started with Escape. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't out here trying to get on Jade and Brownstone and all these En Vogue. I wasn't like, producers today, if it was like Escape, En Vogue, Brownstone, and all these people, you'll see these popular producers today trying to work with those artists. That never really did anything for me. You know what I'm saying? I never was like submitting songs to artists that was already signed or that was already out here doing things. So basically my same rollout is just that. I don't submit music to artists that are already doing their thing. I never did. You know what I mean? I never would. So like even if The Weeknd was out back in 2000, I probably wouldn't have been on his album either. It's just a different way that you look at it now. But I wouldn't have sent music to be on The Weeknd's album unless these guys asked me and came to me and was like, they really wanted to work with me. But majority of that, my time is always put on me creating what I believe should be the next thing, and my focus being on that as opposed to me chasing artists that's already established.
Right. Now, we want to get into Usher because he's actually, first of all, he's one of our favorites on this podcast. We talk about him a lot, and it's just interesting because, we saw Bruno perform at the Super Bowl. We saw Beyonce at Coachella. And at one point, Usher was like the biggest artist on this planet, wasn't he?
No question, especially when you going from the coming off of the My Way and 8701 and definitely by Confessions. By mid-2000s, Usher was that dude for R&B. Like, it was no question.
So, I guess the question is, because, we've talked about it so much, after the Confessions and the Here I Stand album, he kind of went into different directions with the EDM. JD, do you think that may have hurt him in the long run? In the short term, he obviously had hits like OMG, Numb, Scream, and all that, but do you think it hurt him in the long run?
Well, you're always a hit record away from changing people's minds. You know what I mean? That's you're always one record away from changing people's minds of how they look at you. I won't say it hurt him. I would say it changed the way people looked at Usher by him doing that, because the fans and the people wanted Usher to make a Confessions 2 album when they wanted a Confessions 2 album. Not now. They wanted it, 3 years ago. They wanted it 4 years ago. However long it's been, they wanted that album then, right? So it's like you start doing different things, and you change the way people look at you and the fans look at you. And it just takes you, like I said, it takes one song and a body of work to get people to change the way that they're looking at you again. So I don't think it hurt him. I just think it changed the way people were looking at him, because even listening to you just said he was the biggest thing in the world at that time. And then, he changed, and then it changed the way that you guys look at him. So I don't think it hurt him, because I don't look at that as a hurt. I just look at it like, Usher wanted to explore different, other places to do music and other things that he wants to do. And, as a creative person, I can't fault him for wanting to explore and see what else is out there. But at the same time, when you're in that space and people are saying what they say, this is an industry where you have to optimize. So I'm 50-50 with both things. Kind of, I feel like I understood what he did, but I also understand what was wanted and what should have probably happened.
Yeah, JD, we talk about that a lot here on the podcast and even online. A lot of times I feel like when fans fall in love with an artist or an album, they want that sound to remain. So if the first Usher album that you really latched on to was 8701, then you want, that's the Usher that's the Usher you fell in love with. That's the Usher that you want to continue to create music. But as a creative, you might not be able to reach that creative space that you were back then, because we grow and we become different people. So I'm never mad that an artist wants to try some different things, but it is difficult for some fans to accept that sound that you fell in love with from that artist is completely different. And I think that's the struggle that artists have as they get a little older in age and want to try different things.
I will say, to Jermaine's point, though, I always feel like he's one hit away. He's so polarizing to us as an artist. We celebrate him so much for the success he's had. And even though, in our opinion, the Looking for Myself album, the Hard to Love album, weren't exactly what we were looking for, we always anticipate Usher's next project and know how big it could be and how massive it could be and what it could mean to R&B. So even though he may not be the biggest artist in the world right now, I know what we debate is he's so close to being that again based off what we know he's capable of. I think you guys would agree.
Now let's get into Mariah for a sec. You worked on her last album. Love the work that you did on that, actually, but it kind of seems like with her and a lot of the veterans that are still left on these major labels, they don't exactly... I'm not sure if they don't know what to do with these veterans anymore, or if, it's a management thing, but do you think a major label can still push a veteran artist? Because they obviously push a lot of the newer acts, but like Usher or Mariah, like, I don't know, like the numbers aren't reflecting it either.
Yeah, I mean, I think that these major labels are, the younger artists are making these major labels lazier than they've ever been, because the younger artists are doing so much more than what a polished artist, like these polished artists that we talk about, usually do for themselves. A polished artist in coming up, you got to remember that Usher and Mariah and anybody else that came in that vein, they were doing what they saw artists prior to them did. That's the same thing you were saying about the influence. So he's influencing these artists that came before Usher. Like Bobby Brown wasn't on the internet. You know what I mean? You got to think about it. When I first met Usher, Usher was telling me, I want to be just like Bobby Brown. I want to do, so Bobby Brown wasn't on Twitter. Bobby Brown wasn't posting his own things on Instagram. Bobby Brown wasn't out in the streets. He was out in the streets, but he wasn't out doing a lot of different things that these new young artists do to create popularity for themselves. So now the labels, and back then the labels used to have to figure out a marketing plan. They used to come up with things to do and have to create this. But now that the labels understand that everybody has these outlets and everybody has these things to do, like I said, I believe it's creating a much comfortable mindset and a lazy mindset. Like I said, I have this. My theory is you do more when you have less, and that is, to me, that's what's going on now. It's like the artists that, and to answer your question, these artists, like I said, to go back to the question, the artists that you're talking about, they are not all used to beating the ground themselves and doing everything themselves to make people listen to them. And I think a lot of that's where it's a lot of confusion in that part, because these artists have relied on record companies. They have relied on the record company to actually do what they got to do and make sure people heard their records and make sure people paid attention to them. Now these kids are doing this without the record companies. You know what I mean? These kids are making sure you hear them and making sure that they're in front of everybody's faces without anybody from a record company ever being involved. So it's like it's just two different worlds of how how and the record companies have to figure this out, because if not, they're gonna lose all of their artists that came prior, and all they're gonna have is a bunch of new artists, because they if they have a bunch of employees at these companies that don't know how to do for established artists, then the established artists are gonna get frustrated. They're gonna get off the label, and then it's just gonna be a whole bunch of established artists over bigger artists on one side, and then a whole bunch of new artists on the left side. It's a crazy situation, but that's pretty much the ultimate reason of why what you're saying. It's like people, even the ideas for today, an idea for 2000, something that happens in 2018 is not always the right idea for Mariah Carey. You know what I'm saying? Or it's not, but people, so then you have these arguments of where if the artist doesn't do something that some young executive is trying to get them to do, then the young executive marks that artist off as they're old and they're out of the loop. I don't actually agree with that, but I mean, you know, that's what these artists have to deal with.
Well, let me say this, Jermaine. We love 90s R&B, and, you know, we grew up on those artists, and we've watched them evolve. And now many of those 90s R&B acts are independent now, and we've watched their marketing plans. We've watched as they've released projects and the numbers come in and how they struggled to release their projects and get the word out. It's kind of unfortunate. You know, we try our best to help, but it seems like a lot of these artists really don't know what to do because, like you said, they relied on the label all those years ago. But we're thinking, you know, from your perspective, an artist like a Jagged Edge, you had so much success with them, and also you returned to them with their J.E. Heartbreak 2 album, and then last year they put out an album on their own. It really didn't get out there like it should have. Where does an artist like a Jagged Edge go from here, especially when people aren't buying music like they used to? Like, how are they supposed to go from here?
Well, you know, once again, like I said, the artists have to, if you want to be in the mix of what's happening right now, and this has always been, period, if you want to be in the mix of what's happening right now in any era, right now in 2000, right now in the 90s, you have to get in the mix. You know what I'm saying? You have to get in that mix and understand that mix, and just as you understood it when you came in the game. You know what I mean? Just as you understood it when you came in the game. That's always been my way. That's why I've always been able to be in every era, because I understand every time music's changed, or every time something's happened, or every time I'm in it for what actually is happening at that particular point in time. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I'm sitting around wondering what's going on at Coachella. I'm at Coachella. You know what I'm saying? It's like you gotta look at the space a lot of times. A lot of these artists that you speak about, they don't even actually go to these functional functions and see things and check it out, because a lot of people have these arguments about good artists and bad artists in this era and this, that, and the third. So a lot of established artists won't even go see shows because they like, these kids are not even that good. I don't even care if they're not that good. I'm not going because of that. I don't go to shows and go to parties and go to different things because the people are not as good as the people that came prior. I go because I want to have the knowledge of what's actually going on in the time when everybody is talking about right now, right? So if you have a conversation with me, I will never be the person in the conversation that's looking at you weird, like, what is he talking about? Because I'm going to be the person that's there giving you information about these people, because I'm there in the mix. You know what I'm saying? I'm always trying to be in the mix. And that's what the older artists or these artists that you speak about, this is what they have to do. This is what they have to, you know, they have to get more acclimated with what's actually moving around them, and not try to do what's happening, but just get in that space and find your own creative element inside that space, you know? And once that happens, you will see more of these artists actually collide with what's going on. But for right now, you barely see that at all in the music industry. You barely see any of these 90s artists making records with anybody right now. I don't even know a collaboration of anybody that's from you know, that's from the early 2000s to this generation right now. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't really, you know, one of these kids, like, to me, Jagged Edge and Ty Dolla $ign should do a song. You know what I mean? It's like stuff like that you don't have to do it, but it's just like it's almost like a workout. It's like you're just working out just to see what happens, and it happens. You know what I mean? It's not even like it's not something that you have to do. It's just a mindset. For me, that's just how I think. I feel like, you know, even like if you take like Beyonce's performance last night, to me, Beyonce's performance last night was so amazing because Beyonce's not trying to compete with anyone that's come before her. That performance last night was for any one of these little kids or little artists that think they coming right now. That's what that performance was about. It wasn't about anybody that came before her. It wasn't about trying to do what Michael Jackson did. It wasn't about trying to do what this person did. That performance was for any of these young girls that think they want her spot or that be talking shit or whatever you want to do. That performance was 100% for all of them. She merged music the way a DJ would mix music. She had a band playing along with her band. She had dances. What she was doing on the stage was the mindset of, I'm going to do something that these younger people would probably do, or what the next artist that was trying to go after me would try to do, as opposed to where in the past with R&B artists, we've seen R&B artists just try to duplicate what they've seen somebody else do already. You understand? Are you following what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, for me, I just feel like a lot of these artists just have to remove themselves from the space that they sit in and just get in the mix of what's actually going on. Music is music. Whether you like it, whether you like the artist or not, it's still, I'm sure you've been in that position at some point. So that's the funniest thing that I hear so much now, is that people act like in the 90s and early 2000s that it wasn't artists that they didn't like as well. Everybody wasn't good in that era. You know what I mean? It was some whack artists out here as well that we was like, I don't know about. You know what I'm saying? But now it's like you got so many people that keep acting like, this new era is so whack and I can't do this and I can't do that. Yo, listen, you can find some good in the new era of music, by the way.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
man, don't make me
absolutely
name
right.
names. I got a list. There's some whack in 99 and 2000.
Let
Oh, yeah, of
me
course. You know what I'm saying? Please. Of course it is.
let me get your take on this, Jermaine. I mean, we debate about R&B, and we know you know the industry inside and out, but we always talk about why is no one supporting these R&B acts from the 90s, 2000s, because like they have 1 million followers, but their album sold like 2,000 copies in the first week. And for us, something we've noticed is that a lot of the older folks, the urban AC crowd per se, maybe like 40s, 50s, have actually started migrating to the younger music. You'll see them posting about it on social media. You'll see them rocking out to it at the events. And to us, that's crazy, but we feel like that's kind of what's happening because it's the cool thing to do. From your perspective, have you seen anything like that going on?
No, like, understand me. I personally don't pay attention to none of this. You know what I mean? I don't pay it because I've always been, the funniest part about me and Social Def, and I tell people this all the time. When I first created Social Def, I was so young that nobody even wanted to give me time of day because I was so young. Nobody even wanted to pay attention to the young CEO from Social Def talking. This little young country boy from Atlanta, he think he knows something. He what does he know? He's young. He's too young to know anything. Like, I'm not about to listen to him. He's 19 years old. He's trying to tell us what to do. This is what's going on in my life when I was 19. So when I had Escape, right? I had Escape, and I'm trying to make records that, the records that I like, but at the same time, this is a singing group. So I'm thinking in my mind, like, Boyz II Men is working at this time. You got other artists that are having big singing songs, ballads that actually cross over to Urban AC. Now, back in this era, you getting on Urban AC didn't mean you was old. Getting on Urban AC meant you had a smash. You know what I'm saying? You get on Urban AC radio compared to what you was doing. If you got your record on Urban AC and you was a younger artist, that means that you had a hit record, right? So my whole existence of the 90s was me trying to make records to get my artists to cross over to Urban AC. Wow. I was told at Columbia Records that Escape represented their representation of young. They look too young to be a part of Urban AC. They look too young. They look too ghetto to be a part of what Urban AC actually represented. So when you ask me these questions, I've never had to live in a space where my music goes to Urban AC and it can't get on anything else. I've been the guy who's trying to get on Urban AC, but has been neglected because we represent the youth too hard, and we represent being young too hard and too hip to be on Urban AC. I was told this about Jagged Edge with Gotta Be. I was told this about Escape with Understanding. And after I started, like when we put out Tonight by Escape, the acapella record, my whole thing was like, this is an acapella song. They're singing. It's no beat. It's just these girls and their beautiful voices. Let's go and get Urban AC. You think that didn't happen? You know why? It was because they still was represented by a young CEO who owns his own record company, and So Def didn't represent what, at that time, people that was on Urban AC, it wasn't the same representation. We talking about the Anita Bakers of the world, and we talking about people like that would automatically get on these stations. I couldn't break the ice for that, for nothing in the world, based on my age and based on the image that I was putting out. So now when I hear you say this, these artists are being shuffled directly to Urban AC without even going to other radio. Like when I brought out the Dundria project, that was my goal. I was like, this girl is too young to be on Urban AC. Like, we not, and people was telling me, like, Jermaine, that's a Urban AC record. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that means. I think when I thought I had Urban AC records, you guys told me that wasn't. So now you trying to tell me that you want my young artist to go to Urban AC? I'm not doing it. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not doing that. So I broke Dundria on mainstream radio without even going to Urban AC. And then Urban AC started picking up on the record, and we started doing it the way that I had always wanted to do it. Like, let's go to mainstream, break her there, and then let the Urban AC crowd come to life after the record, after the record pops. And I got that same mentality from like Anthony Hamilton. But see, with the Anthony Hamilton project, same thing. People was confused by Anthony Hamilton's association with So Def. People didn't understand how, this artist was gonna break being a part of what people thought was a hip hop company. And even in the beginning, when I was doing Coming From Where I'm From and putting him out with that song, it was like, this record is not a super mainstream record, Jermaine. This it's not, and I didn't produce it, so it's not normally what we're used to from So Def. It's a little bit more neo-soulish, kind of, blah, 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 blah. So I'm like, okay, I don't even care about radio. I took the mentality of what kids have now. I'm like, listen, what we're going to do with this project is make sure that people hear it. Word of mouth is going to break Anthony Hamilton. I don't care about coming from where I'm from being all over radio. I care about tastemakers like you guys that I'm talking to right now and other tastemakers around the world hearing this project, understanding the movement, listening to the album, and letting everybody else know how good it is. And then when I came with Charlene, it was a wrap. This shit was on every station, mainstream, Urban AC, everywhere, because we had beat the pavement with people knowing and wanting to hear, this guy, he's shitting, JD's really behind him, blah, 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 blah. That was the movement. I didn't care about the radio. So I'm saying, like, I've been in, that Urban AC just going there. I think, like I said, I feel like all of these artists that come out with their records, they R&B, they can't be in a lazy mindset and mentality. They got to understand that it was work put involved. A lot of work went into their early success if they had success prior to today. And you got to make people do that now. And if not, you got to find something that feels like that work in order for your records to succeed. You can't just put records out just because you got a name and think they're going to sell. That's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Great point.
Now, we're going to be wrapping it up pretty soon here because I know you're busy, JD, but I got to get your take on it. Ed, I want your take on it first. Obviously, Destiny's Child, they came back yesterday. Coachella, they performed there, and this is a big if. But if Destiny's Child was to come back and release music, how big would that be for the genre of R&B, mainstream R&B?
I would love to see that. I mean, if it stayed on, but Beyonce, she's just kind of, I hate to say transcended the genre, but I wonder if they put out music, if it would even be R&B, or would it be more of the pop sound? I mean, JD, I'm sure you got some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, like right now in today's world, like I went on the Rap Radar podcast and I said that Bruno Mars was R&B, and I saw a lot of people being mad at me for saying that. Like, I don't think this generation or people even understand what R&B music is anymore. People think The Weeknd is not R&B because he's singing over harder beats. And if we rewind this interview, when you talked about the My R remix, you said, here comes Jermaine with this harder remix and Mariah Carey singing over top of it. So to me, The Weeknd sounds like a Jermaine Dupri remix. It doesn't sound like pop music. Pop music to me sounds like NSYNC Bye Bye Bye. That's pop music. Right? That's pop. It is what it is. Like that's a pop record. No, you know what I mean? However you want to. That's pop music. But to say that The Weeknd is not R&B just because the music sounds harder, edge, and got a little bit more edgier thing than the melodicness of You Got It Bad or whatever doesn't change where the heartbeat of the music is coming from. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like people are just doing this. I think they do that just to try to make The Weeknd have a little bit more appeal so he doesn't get stuck in what they think R&B is at this particular point in time. But dude is an R&B artist. You know what I'm saying? He's an R&B artist. His records are more, leaning closer to rap than a Luther Vandross, or something else. I mean, I'm using Luther because that was an era before I even started making music, right? So it's like you got to look at the eras of R&B, but I feel like when these younger people or younger executives talk about R&B, they keep thinking that R&B music is like the old R&B, like the R&B that came before TLC. Like if somebody, like right now, if TLC came out today on a different record company, they would try to say that was pop music. TLC is R&B. You know what I mean? Like it's an R&B record, an R&B group with colorful sounds that could make them get on pop radio. You know what I'm saying? It's not something that's just like Dallas went in the studio and said, we're gonna make y'all pop. That's not what's going on. So I just think that I think that a lot of these artists, the plans for these artists they got to shake that R&B thing off of them, because that, people really get stuck in that and like it's like the old school thing. Like one of the things that drives me crazy in the music business, and I guess that's one of my pet peeves, is that these old school concerts, right? When they have a concert, why do they have to put the word old school in there? I don't understand. Yep. Why can't you just say we're going to see Guy, SWV, and Jagged Edge, and this, that, and the third? Why does it have to be the old school Jammy Jam Gold and shit? Like, I don't want to hear all that. Like, I don't understand that. Like, what does that mean? All that does, to me, that sets the mindset of that this is something that's old and it's supposed to be over here, and we're dusting it off and bringing it back out. That's not, you know what I'm saying? That's crazy to me. But at the same time, it's just a weird mindset how people think about things. Because like if Aaliyah was still alive, I believe they would probably say Aaliyah's music was pop right now. Aaliyah was R&B, 100% R&B. But Aaliyah's records would go toe to toe with The Weeknd right now, right? And I could be wrong, but I'm saying, as far as I'm concerned, you could put on The Weeknd and put Aaliyah on right behind that shit, and that shit sound like it's supposed to go with each other. And it all, you know what I'm saying? It feels good, right? So I don't see I don't understand what the difference is. And Timbaland's beats were even harder than The Weeknd's beats, if you ask me. So I don't understand what the difference is that makes you say, even like Bruno Mars. Bruno Mars' last album was an R&B record. What's the song where he put Gucci Mane on the remix?
Was it That's What I Like?
Yeah, That's What I Like, right? That's What I Like is a song that I said I should have made. That's a song that I was like, yo, that sounds like a record I would have made, right?
Yep.
That if I say it's a song I should have made, that's definitely an R&B record. So when people got mad at me saying Bruno Mars, JD, you're tripping, Bruno Mars is not R&B, I'm like, okay, well, maybe we ain't listened to the same songs.
Right.
even like all the up-tempo records that he's doing, like 24 Karat Gold and all of these records that he's doing, those are records that have the heartbeat of Lake Slide. Those are the records that have Fantastic Voyage. Like, he's thinking about that type of stuff when he's making these songs. You know what I mean? Like, somebody got to tell me I'm wrong, but I can tell you that that's these records that he's listened to prior to making these type of records. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, I want fun songs like this, like The Time. And these artists was making these type of records. All of these artists that I'm speaking of are all R&B. And that's what even made me want to do this podcast today, because I speak so much on hip-hop podcasts, but I've made so many incredible R&B records, I felt like it was only right for me to talk to y'all.
Absolutely, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, and we do appreciate that. And I feel what you're saying, JD. I think one thing that has frustrated me as a fan is that we put R&B in a box, because we don't realize that when it comes to R&B, Anthony Hamilton does not sound like Aaliyah, does not sound like Weeknd, does not sound like J.E., does not sound like Anthony Hamilton, Escape. These are all different facets of R&B, but it's still R&B. And I think that a lot of labels will say, oh, you sound R&B is a tag that makes you sound like Luther and Anita Baker. That's a facet of R&B, but Bruno is too. And I think the genre is a lot more diverse than the tags we throw on it.
Oh, no, it's the biggest. I mean, by the way, to me, R&B is the biggest genre out, because it has so many different variations of R&B.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? But it's just like, it's just the executives and the way the record companies are putting the records out here. You know, like, you could say John Legend is pop if you want to. That's on you. You know, I guarantee you that John Legend, in his heart of hearts, don't want to be called a pop artist. Nope. I guarantee you. Right. 100%. You know what I'm saying? I guarantee you he don't want you to call him, oh, the pop artist John Legend. I guarantee you he don't want that. Like, and if he does, I could be wrong, but I don't believe that. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like Alicia Keys. I think the same thing with Alicia Keys. Like, I think Alicia was presented to the world the way Clive presented her, in such a massive way that it became like she was a pop artist. So then when she started making more urban sounding, you don't call my name, have a Kanye producer with these samples of shit, these records weren't as big as the first song, because people felt like she was going in a different direction. She's always been an R&B artist. You know what I'm saying? She's always been the soulful piano playing R&B record. Like, if you listen to the song that I did for her, Girlfriend, on the first album, it's what I do. Is Alicia Keys singing over a Wu-Tang record. Does she make it sound like a Wu-Tang record? No, she makes it sound like a little more broader record than a Wu-Tang record, but at the same time, it's still the same elements of the My All thing. And I just keep going back to that, because that's what you said. I make music like remixes, and I understand that, and I make music based on how I like records. If I make beats, my beats have to be as hard as they could possibly be, and if you have the best vocals in the world, like if I ever did an Adele record, that should have sounded so ill, because I'll put her on something that you ain't expecting Adele to be singing on. You know what I mean? And but she's you know, it's even like Lionel Richie to me, right? Lionel Richie's an R&B artist that just understood how to make a country record. He still is an R&B artist. I just think people be losing sight of, like, they be trying to take the power from R&B, and that's why I still, like I said, I got on this podcast with you guys, and I respect what y'all doing, and I hope y'all don't ever stop, because I feel like, you know, I'm going to continue to keep making R&B records. I'm going to find more R&B artists that really love R&B. I actually have a new artist by the name of Brett James that we manage, and he's a white kid that is really into R&B music and into the, you know, into that the 90s era, 2000 era of music. And his music is a little bit more neo-soulish than I would do as a producer. But when I listen to the music, you can tell that the soul and the love and everything I'm talking about is in this music, and that's what it is. And even working his project, I know that it's going to be, you know, it's going to be looked at a little differently, and he might not get all the love that he's supposed to get on one side, and he might get more love on the other side. But my job in this is to make sure that I get this out to as many people that love music as possible, and love real soulful and love real music and people singing and feel good music. So that's where I chose to pick up this project and be a part of it.
That's what's up.
Dope. Now, JD, I know you got to get out of here pretty quickly, but we got to ask you this. You know, this is an ongoing debate on our podcast. We've asked every single guest that we've had up in here. Ed, his favorite artist is Keith Sweat. Tom's favorite artist is Musiq Soulchild. Who's the better artist and why?
Wow. I can't comment on that. I can't say who's the better artist. You know, that'll get blown out of proportion. But I think that they both are great artists, and I'm glad you brought this up, because these two artists are so different. Once again, that shows the stretch of how, you know, R&B music actually is. These artists are different. They, you know, Keith Sweat is a different type of artist. His songs are different. Where Musiq Soulchild is like, I don't believe that Keith Sweat even fits in neo soul. So you're talking about a neo soul artist, and you're talking about a real straightforward mainstream R&B artist. It's two different things. Right. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it's two different things. Without me even saying who's better than the other one, because I feel like Musiq Soulchild has had some, you know, that love song that he had, that song is amazing, right? But then, you know, Keith Sweat whole first album was a classic. Like the entire album. You know what I'm saying? And he only had 8 records on the album. Every song on that shit was jamming.
Yes,
and
sir.
It's a classic. It goes down as one of the most classic R&B records ever. But it was also produced by my idol, so I might be a little biased. But at the same time, it's one of the most jammingest R&B albums I ever heard.
All right. And
so I mean,
Jermaine,
you take that. I guess you could take that and put it towards. You say he's leaning towards Keith Sweat. No.
Well, I'm taking it as Keith Sweat win.
Okay, well there you go.
All right, Jermaine, just to wrap up, you know, it's a big year for you. You're getting inducted in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. You got the anniversary of So Def. You got the new artist, Brent James, who you were telling us about. Tell us about everything else you've got going on that we can expect from you this year.
Well, I mean, you know, it's really just to really continue to keep doing what I'm doing, you know, what I've been doing for the longest. I mean, this year basically is about the 25th anniversary, the induction in the Hall of Fame, going on tour with the So Def 25th anniversary, actually doing an actual tour where we go into, you know, 6 or 7 markets. It's not going to be a big tour. It's going to be a very, very limited tour, but we're definitely going to bring all of the artists to each one of these cities that we put up and give y'all a show like what I did with the 20th anniversary. So between that and, you know, all of this new stuff that's going on, you know, just, you know, trying to create as much more creations as I can. That's it. You know, it's hard. It's always hard for me to tell people what I'm doing in 4 months in the year, in the beginning of the year. You got to talk to me in, like, you know, September. You'll be like, oh, okay, there we go. But, you know, because I'm in the studio every day, constantly working with people and trying to keep that what we talked about earlier about me creating my own space as opposed to following what's going on. I feel like we have enough of those people out there doing that. You know what I mean? Those guys, they produce for these people that's already making records, but where are the creative people? I saw something in Billboard yesterday that everybody was posting about with this boom of hip hop, why haven't black executives moved to the top? And it's interesting because I saw this message that Russell posted when he said it, and his message actually is kind of what I wanted to say, but I know people pay so much attention to what I say. I don't want to put it out there, but I'm gonna say it now. I feel like we don't have enough creative people. We don't have who is the new Russell Simmons in the music business? You know, who is the new Puff Daddy in the music business? Who is the new Jermaine Dupri in the record business that's actually creating from scratch? You know what I mean? I started my record company with a group that didn't exist and created more artists that didn't exist constantly. And I went head up with all of the majors with new artists. I don't know anybody that's doing that right now, that's coming out with new artists going head up with anybody that's already existing. You know, that's where we have to get back to. We got to get that creative. We got to get these creative executives, you know, back in the box, or somebody got to stand up and become that creative person. It's not just going to be like, it's going to be handed to you just because hip hop is blowing up. To me, that's a lazy mentality again. You know what I mean? Like I said, I preach that. People got to get back to work, man. Everybody, these guys that people talk about that did what they was doing, they was really out here working and really, really busting their ass. And I don't really see that. I don't really see that a lot right now in this era. I see a lot of people just relying on streams and thinking that social media is going to change their life. And it is, but it's still not. They're not doing anything. There's no work involved with that. You got to get out here and do a little bit more work. And i.e., me saying that is me doing this podcast. Who else have y'all had that's like me on this podcast?
Right. You're right.
I'm asking. I don't know. I'm just asking.
No, we haven't had a
producer to the level.
No, we haven't had one.
No, not at all.
That's my point. That's my point. It's no reason that I shouldn't do it when this is the music that I put out and I need you guys to support it. You understand what I'm saying? This is the stuff that I feel like these are the things that I learned in me making music and owning my own company and doing what you got to do. You have to work, regardless of it's Sunday. People watching the basketball game, that's good and all of that, but I'm out here trying to optimize as much as I can. You know what I'm saying? So I want to thank you guys for having this, and I'm glad that ain't nobody else did it. Maybe I can set the tone, and you'll get a whole bunch of other guys to get on here and talk about what they got to do and what they need to do, and we can crank this energy back up.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. We appreciate it. And lastly, JD, you know, I think about a while ago you were posting on Instagram your work with Usher in the studio. Is that actually happening? Is an Usher album going to come out with you producing it?
I don't know if I'm producing the whole album. I mean, you know, once again, like, you know, I'm a producer. I'm gonna say this one thing that, you know, and that goes back to your question about me being on other people's albums and this, that, and the third. I'm a producer, and the way I produce, you know, like Usher, I never was involved with his marketing. I was never involved with the record company. Usher was on the face, and they did that. They hired me to be his producer. I wrote songs. We were in the studio, and whatever happened from there. I didn't have much to do with that, and that's basically what's going on now. I don't have much to do with Usher's day-to-day. I don't know what's happening with his record and what's coming on. I can tell you this, that we have created some incredible songs, and we do have some monsters. I don't know if you will hear them. I can't tell you that either, because I don't have control of that. I'm just the producer. But at the same time, yes, we have worked on his record. He does have plans of putting his record out soon. I don't know when that's coming. But, you know, that's not my job to know. I just know that I go in there and write. And I feel like we have this bar that we raised ourselves, that we got to jump up there and touch that bar. So we going in the studio trying to, you know, like I said, I did it with You Got It Bad. I thought about this with You Got It Bad. I'm like, listen, You Got It Bad was so amazing. Let's make another one. And we actually created a song that was bigger than You Got It Bad with Let It Burn. So, you know, I'm hoping that lightning strikes twice in the same place.
Cool. So, Jermaine, I want to thank you again for joining us on the podcast. Man, we really appreciate all that you gave us, all the knowledge, and, best of luck with everything we've got. We're going to support you with no matter with whatever you're doing, and, you're always more than welcome back.
All right, thank you. Thank you, guys. And keep pushing that R&B, please. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Right. We doing it.
Okay. Well, Jermaine Dupri, shout outs to him. That was an amazing episode right there.
Playa, if you ever wanted an education on the music industry, if you're a new artist coming into this thing, I hope you were paying keen attention because he gave so many nuggets for free. And props to him for showing us love for continuing to try to keep R&B alive in 2018. We really appreciated that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was really cool. He recognizes what we do as well, so hey, let us know that this SoulBack thing it's a pretty decent thing that we have going on.
It's better than that Taylor Swift song. I'll give it that.
Calm down, Ed. Tom, we want to go back and do the SoulBack track of the day. I know earlier I stole your thunder and I had to put the Ashanti Good record in there, but what is the SoulBack track of the day today?
Man, can I do a Jermaine Dupri remix in honor of him being on this podcast?
Yep.
When you mentioned, you asked Ed, you put him on the spot what remix was his favorite. The one that came to mind for me was the Drew Hill Sleeping in My Bed remix. I know Jermaine mentioned that one, but I'm going to pick that one. Just like you mentioned about his remix, it's such a different vibe than the original, but such a great song, and that's the one I'm going to choose. I mean, there's so many I could have gone with to honor Jermaine, but that was just one that came to mind off the top of my head.
Damn. That's a great record right there. Can't hate on it. Ed, what's going on with SoInStereo.com? Actually, before we get into that, what's going on with your cousin Chris Brown? He deleted his Instagram page.
If I knew what was going on with cousin Chris, I would have a whole career ahead of me, because just chronicling the adventures of that dude is enough for its own blog. I have no idea what's going on with the player. I have to ask my grandma.
What is Let me ask you. I just read a headline: Kanye West reactivates Instagram account or something like that. But what does deleting your Instagram account even do? Can't you just stop posting?
Well, no. People will actually take their accounts down, but because journalism in 2018 includes when and how often people delete and remove their accounts, then we writing whole stories about it. I'm like, I spent 4 years in journalism school for this.
But what would cause someone to delete their account of all things? What does that do?
I mean, maybe they just do. I mean, I have friends who will delete their account or take their account off their phone if they're really busy, and it's I need to step away from social media for 2 weeks because I'm working on a paper for school. Maybe he's trying to get this album out and doesn't want his phone mentions blowing up. I don't know. But while we're writing gigantic length think pieces on why somebody took down their Twitter or Instagram is beyond me. Y'all got a lot of free time on your hands. I need to be using that time to be playing my PS4.
Kyle, can you imagine if we had trolls that followed us on Instagram and how many mentions we'd be getting nonstop to our phones? Now that would be something.
Yep. That would be fun. But I just want to say, I'm glad that Twitter is not as big as it used to be. Or actually, I'm kind of sad because back in the day, an artist would act out, delete their tweet, and just claim that someone hacked them. We don't see that anymore.
You don't see that anymore. That used to be if they said something crazy, they would just wild out and be like, oh, my account was hacked. No, you were just drunk.
Yeah. So, Ed, what's going on with SoInStereo.com?
It's a few things. And I wish I could have hit JD with this, but what we had, one of the biggest posts we've had in recent days is our retrospective on the year 1998. One of my favorite years ever for music. And we talked about why 1998 was a game changer for hip-hop and R&B. So if you love the year 1998, all the great classic songs that came out during that time, and there were a ton, from Lauryn Hill to Kelly Price, Jay-Z's Ascent, Big Pun's Ascent, 112's Ascent, Tamia's Ascent. There's just so much great music that came out in that era, and one of those albums was JD's debut album as well that I love. So check out that on Soul and Stereo. Of course, we got a couple of additions to our love letters. And coming up this coming week, hopefully we'll have a review of Maya's new album. And then the week after, I think we'll have something from Janelle Monáe.
Dope. And Tom, what's going on with YouKnowIGotSoul.com?
Not too much. I think it's been kind of slow lately. Have you been, you recently put up a few interviews. You did.
Yeah, I think I interviewed, I posted my Raheem Devon interview not too long ago. Not much is going on. I'm going to be interviewing the neo soul group Moonchild later on today. I know a lot of people love them, so we'll see what they have to say. And then some tour news for everyone. I forgot to mention BJ the Chicago Kid and Ro James will be going on their R&B tour together. That should be exciting.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
Absolutely.
Yep. And before we get out of here, because I know some people actually want to know what's going on the charts right now, it's very interesting on Urban AC. It's sort of a free-for-all. We have Tony Braxton, Long As I Live, at number 10, En Vogue Rockin' at number 9. Khalid, Location, how is that still on the chart? That's number 8. Neo, Good Man, is number 7. Number 6 is Division, Mood. I actually found out that their name is Division. SZA and Travis Scott and SZA, Love Galore, is 5. Daniel Caesar, Get You, is 4. Tom's favorite song, When We by Tank, is back at number 3. Bruno Mars and Cardi B, Finesse, is number 2. And Charlie Wilson has made it to number 1 with Chills.
All right.
And
I don't know how Khalid is still hanging on, but good Lord.
And then quickly on the urban charts, I found this really interesting. Tom and I have talked about it, but Her is number 13 on the urban charts, and Ella May is number 12 on the urban charts. These are both strictly R&B records, and they're making their way to the top of urban. We'll talk about that next week because this is a really interesting, and I think we got to look into it a little more, but we'll keep you guys posted. But until then, Kyle, Ed, Tom, we've had a great podcast. We want to shout out Jermaine Dupri once again. We'll have another guest for you next week. But until then, guys, I guess we're out of here.
All right.
We're out.
Y'all know what this is. Peace.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it.